Hit it.
Welcome to the Test Talks podcast, the place to go to geek out on software testing. And now your host, whose mission is to help you succeed with test automation, Joe Colantonio.
Hey, it's Joe, and welcome to another episode of Test Talks. With more and more companies moving away from the centralization of their tools to conduct delivery of software, it's even harder to establish traceability from one artifact to the next across the entire organization. That's where the power of value stream integration comes in. So in this episode, we'll be test talking all about value stream integration with Jeff Downs and Matt Anger from Tasktop Technologies. So get ready to discover how you can dramatically improve the efficiency of your software development and delivery process. Check it out. Test Talks is sponsored by the fantastic folks at Sauce Labs, the cloud-based automated testing platform that eliminates the need to maintain your own Selenium grid and test infrastructure. Try it for free today. Visit testtalks.com and click on the Sign Up Now link under the homepage sponsor section. Hey, Matt and Jeff, welcome to Test Talks.
Thanks, Joe. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Awesome. So it's great to have both of you on the show today. I'm really excited about this topic because it's not a topic that I've actually had on the show before. And I'm not sure how many people are aware of it. So I'd love to dive into it. So today we're going to be talking about how value stream integration can improve software quality assurance. But before we get into it, I know, Matt, you've been on the show before, but Jeff, could you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Jeff Downs. I'm the Director of Pre-Sales for North America at Tasktop Technologies currently. But prior to this, I spent an extensive time in various QA roles, everything from manual testing on waterfall projects to automated testing lead to leading the testing effort on some of our agile projects. But I also spent time administering and owning all of the test tools from HP ALM for test management to the automated HP tools, as well as tools like Performance Center. But then some of the open source automation tools that we used as well, like Ruby Water. So I've got quite a long background in testing before I joined Tasktop.
Awesome. And Matt, like I mentioned, you were on episode 109. Just curious to know what you've been up to since then.
I've been doing a lot of the same, Joe. Since episode 109, I think that was early September or early 2016, jog my memory. So I was with a partner of Micro Focus at the time, or HPE, known as Results Positive, in a pre-sales capacity. I've stuck with the same career path, so to speak, and made my way over to Tasktop. And you might know that Results Positive is a partner of Tasktop's, and we're working on a few deals together actually still right now. So it's all milk and cookies. You know, everybody plays together nicely.
Good deal. Okay, guys. So I guess, a lot of folks probably aren't familiar with the term unless it's just me. So what is value stream integration?
Value stream integration to me is really looking at your business from requirements intake all the way down through the operational aspects of your organization. And in our little world, I call it our little world. It's a huge world of software-defined enterprises, but that includes everything from that point and everything in between. The creation of artifacts. And when I mention artifacts, I'm speaking to, functional designs and technical designs and epics and user stories and features and all the different terminology that we hear in the industry, in addition to all the various terminology that we hear as it relates to testing. Test plans, test cases, test configurations, parameters, and the list goes on, and it seems like every vendor has a different term for various things, whether it be an execution run or an instance. HPE coined that phrase, an instance in the test lab, but also defects, bugs, issues, incidents, all of that stuff, and how it sort of relates to one another through the continuum, from further upstream The business is helping define these requirements in terms of, what they want the software to do, how they want it to enable their enterprise, and the intake process to the information technology teams of deciding how to build out this new innovative idea, or how to perhaps modify or adjust an existing application to meet the needs that the business has set forth. So to me, value stream integration is, how do we as an organization interlink all of these sort of interdependent aspects of the business together, knowing that organizations today, we're seeing a trend in the market. They're moving away from centralization or standardization of their tools to conduct delivery of software, to sort of bring your own tools. If you have a better way of doing it, and we're seeing it in the very, very large enterprises, your global conglomerates that have multiple lines of businesses, each using different ALM tools. And I call it our little world. It's a huge world of software-defined enterprises, but that includes everything from that point and everything in between. The creation of artifacts. And when I mention artifacts, I'm speaking to, functional designs and technical designs and epics and user stories and features and all the different terminology that we hear in the industry, in addition to all the various terminology that we hear as it relates to testing. Test plans, test cases, test configurations, parameters, and the list goes on. And it seems like every vendor has a different term for various things, whether it be an execution run or an instance. HPE coined that phrase, an instance in the test lab, but also defects, bugs, issues, incidents, all of that stuff, and how it sort of relates to one another through the continuum, from further upstream. The business is helping define these requirements in terms of, what they want the software to do, how they want it to enable their enterprise, and the intake process to the information technology teams of deciding how to build out this new innovative idea, or how to perhaps modify or adjust an existing application to meet the needs that the business has set forth. We're seeing lines of businesses across organizations that are embracing different tools, ranging from different agile planning tools to more specialized tool sets. So as opposed to standardizing all on one tool set, the idea is, how can we facilitate the end-to-end integration of all the tools, but not just the tools, the people and the processes that tie into delivering high quality software quickly, because that's what it really comes down to. Before, it's always a tug of war between speed and velocity of delivery, and also the quality. But what we're finding is, if organizations focus their efforts around value stream integration and what that truly means, what I've just described, they can let loose a little bit and not really have to worry about sacrificing quality in order to meet their speed or their delivery timetables. So they can have their cake and eat it too, so to speak. And then what Jeff and I, our mission and goal is to help educate the masses, so to speak, on the importance of value stream integration. And of course, Tasktop has the platform, so to speak, that enables VSI across organizations, both large and small. But it's really bringing this new terminology to the forefront of practitioners' minds and showcasing to them different areas where they can actually significantly improve upon key performance indicators that they're measuring in their software delivery lifecycle as a byproduct of embracing the value stream integration.
And so I can add a little bit to what Matt said, and maybe offer some context on how we got to where we are right now. Over the last 5 years, what I've seen is that most companies started 5 or 6 years ago with a very basic need. They have testers in one tool that are running test cases, and they're discovering issues, and they've got developers in a different tool that are managing their work there. And so the testing community historically has used HP, HPE, Micro Focus, ALM over the years. And so, and I experienced this as well, as a tester, as a testing organization, we would get pressure from the development teams that, why are you using ALM? You should be using At that time, there was a lot of TFS or maybe Jira, because that's what our developers are using. And I don't have access to the defects that you're creating, so I need you to use my tool. So the ability to connect the tools and allow the defects to flow back and forth was really the focus of a lot of the early companies that started to adopt. At that time, it wasn't so much focused on value stream integration because it was just that point-to-point style of integration. But that's really where things started to grow up from. And then as people saw their defects get connected and flow back and forth, they started to have needs around requirements and epics and stories and wanting those to move back and forth between their developers and testers and BAs. And then suddenly people wanted to start connecting in ITSM. So if you have incidents and problems that are coming in from your customers through your call center or through whatever support mechanism you have, those need to get back into the development lifecycle. And then also the PMO. So all of the planning that's done on the front end of the process needs to get connected in. So over the years, we've kind of grown from this point-to-point need into the larger value stream integration.
Awesome. So I just want to make sure I understand, maybe like with a real world example.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can give you a real example from, like I said, from my previous role when I was in the QA organization. We would develop the tests in ALM. And we were developing those tests based on requirements that are being defined in other tools. So they might have been defined in Blueprint. Some were being defined in Word still. But ultimately, there was some sort of export from that requirement definition tool. And then we get sent an Excel spreadsheet, a Word document, and then we have to develop test cases from those. When we develop the test cases, I have no way to effectively trace the test case back to the original requirement. And so that, again, led to a lot of manual work because are we really validating the proper requirements that have been defined by our BAs or not? When the requirements changed, since we didn't have that traceability, we had no way of understanding which test cases are impacted and which test cases therefore need to be changed or which test cases need to be re-executed and revalidated. So that was part of it, is allowing people to stay in their tool of choice that allows them to most effectively do their job, but also providing additional traceability or additional connectivity across the tools so that you could do additional reporting in your requirements management tool, or you could use or leverage some of the requirements traceability capabilities within your test management tool that historically you haven't been able to use because your requirements haven't lived in your test management tool. So those are the types of things that you can do. You can start to leverage the full investment in each of the tools that your practitioners are using, but also the practitioners can take full advantage of those tools and really maximize what they're doing.
So when you're managing the value stream, are there any practices you can use to help you manage it better?
I think the first step is really just understanding how work flows through your value stream. One of our customers said, if you don't control your value stream will control you. And it starts out by really stepping back and stepping outside of the context of the tools that you use to manage your epics and stories and tests and defects and so forth. And really breaking down how work is defined in your organization, how that work then gets approved, gets broken down into smaller, more granular pieces of work, how it gets validated and tested, developed, and ultimately delivered out into your customers. And so what I've done in the past with some of our customers is step through just that. So we step through the entire process once, we take the tools completely out of the picture, and we understand how everything is connected across their value stream. What we did then is we stepped back and we went through the process again. And this time we introduced the tools and the artifacts inside of those tools that are being used and managed by the practitioners in your organization. As an example, I'm managing my epics and stories in version 1 or CA Agile Central. And then as I break down the epics into stories, I'm actually creating test cases to validate those stories in Micro Focus ALM. And then as I execute those test cases, I'm discovering defects. Those are getting tracked in ALM as well. But then once code is released out the door, customers find issues with it. They're calling into our call center, to our support team, and they are creating problems or incidents that are being managed in that particular system. And so that's really the first step that we went through to really understand how everything is flowing across the entire value stream. From there, what we did was we would go back and we would look at all of the different connection points and figure out where we have those manual connections. So where are we either relying on spreadsheets, on email, maybe we're relying on somebody manually keying a defect into one tool and then opening up another tool and rekeying it into that system. So we identify any of those manual handoffs between the tools and figure out where's that low-hanging fruit, or where's the first system that we want to start with, and where can we get the most value from. Because really anyone that tries to implement a value stream integration, they're not going to go all in right out of the gate. They need to build this up piecemeal to accomplish their end goal. So once we understand everything, then we went back and we started putting a plan in place to connect each of the individual tools so that the defects could start flowing between the practitioners that need to manage them, and same with the epics and stories and problems and so forth.
Awesome. So once you have the systems connected, is there a way to actually visualize what's going on in the value stream to help you communicate better with your teams?
Yeah, once you connect all of the systems, one of the real advantages there is that you now have what I would refer to as automated traceability amongst the various artifacts in the value stream. So before you've connected the system, you might be defining your epics and stories in one tool, and because you're using that one tool, the epic is automatically a parent of the child story. But when you start to talk about the relationship between a story and a test case, as I said earlier, a lot of that's done by exporting spreadsheets, manually figuring out what that traceability matrix might look like. So once you have the tools connected, now you're able to automatically establish traceability from one artifact to the next across the entire value stream. The key there is that you have the connected and the correlated artifacts across the value stream. So you're then able to report on them. And you can start to do more localized reporting. So from within your Agile management tool, you might be able to do better reporting because now you have more details that are flowing in from your test management tool. So your defects aren't trapped in your test management tool. They're flowing into your Agile management tool. So you can use more of the boards and built-in reports in those tools to do that localized reporting. You can also start extracting data out of all of the tools across your value stream and then building dashboards on top of that. And these are really going to be higher level metrics above that team level, metrics that senior leaders would be more interested in. So really starting to identify where your bottlenecks exist. A lot of companies will go in and say, okay, we're gonna go Agile because it's going to help us move so much more quickly. But Agile really helps in the middle, if you will. You might be performing very well with your Agile transformation, but if it still takes 3 to 6 months to go from someone having an idea for an enhancement through all of the due diligence and the approvals and funding and all of that stuff, then it doesn't really matter how quickly your Agile teams are performing. And if you're just looking at that Agile management tool for some of these performance metrics to see, I don't know what the different metrics might be, your burn ups and your burn down, your velocity type of reports, then you're not really seeing the whole picture. And so by connecting that entire value stream and extracting data from all of the tools, now it allows you to start to build out dashboards where you can truly look at an end-to-end cycle time or an end-to-end lead time across the board and identify that it would be great if we could deliver stories faster. But we're on average delivering stories in 5 days right now. We could probably get it down to 4. So that would be a 20% improvement there. But again, if you're sitting and waiting for 3 to 6 months for the work to actually get processed and analyzed and funded and so forth, then is that one extra day that you're gaining by optimizing your agile teams really going to help you?
So you did mention dashboarding, and I assume that that's one of the key benefits of once you have your value stream defined and you're able to visualize it and tell your teams where they may be falling behind or where they may be excelling. Like, what kind of metrics do you normally think is important when you're making an executive dashboard? Like, there's a lot of noise you probably get once you have all this information coming in. So in your experience, are there any key metrics you usually like to give to executives at a high level to help them know where they stand on their software development?
The one that I just mentioned is one of the more popular ones, that end-to-end cycle time or end-to-end lead time type of metric. I think it comes down to being able to provide metrics across multiple tools so that they do tell the entire story. Also focusing on the different types of work. And so I think in the Phoenix project, they talk about the 4 different types of work. Being able to report on maybe the end-to-end cycle time or the across those 4 types of work. So whether it be business value work or unplanned work or the IT work and so forth. End-to-end cycle time is a big one. And then I'm just trying to remember a couple of the other ones that I've seen here recently. Matt, do any of those metrics jump into your mind?
The only metrics that I've been thinking about lately as it relates to value stream integration, Joe, and something that might want to be included in this particular podcast is around defect detection percentage. So defect detection percentage is really just a very simple calculation of defects found by this testing, quote unquote, and I'll define that in a second, divided by the total defects, including those found afterwards. Okay. So what that means is this is pretty much a stage or a testing layer, whether that be unit testing, system testing, UAT, regression testing. For a particular pain point that I experienced in a previous consulting role is around regression testing. We would often get a window of time allotted to us by the business for a service pack, as an example, and say, hey, you have 3 to 4 days to get through an exorbitant number of tests or regression tests in that time period before releasing to production. And when we released the build to production, our end users would, of course, consume the software and identify incidents. And we were using ServiceNow at that particular point and using Micro Focus ALM to track defects or bugs. So what we ended up doing is we ended up tracking the number of incidents identified in production for our 30-day period after a production push. So as an example, if today, April 18th, was the day we went live with a service pack, we would track the number of incidents identified by the end users for a 30-day period, and we would use that information to calculate our DDP, or our defect detection percentage. The problem is this. Oftentimes, what we would need to do is perform a manual export from both ServiceNow and also Micro Focus ALM into a CSV file or a spreadsheet, and pull out our Swiss Army knife and do some manual calculations to determine what the DDP is. Okay, so at go live, when you push a service pack or you push a release into production, at go live, your DDP is 100%. As incidents are identified by your end users, that DDP drops from that point in time. So with that being said, in order to monitor DDP, we had to do this extract on a daily basis to see where it was at the day after we released, the second day, the third day. The point is, DDP helps us identify how effective our regression testing is over a particular build, and whether the quality of the test cases, whether the automated testing or the manual testing, is truly effective in trapping defects and preventing them from slipping through to our productive environment. With value stream integration, what we're noticing is organizations are now able to tie their test management tools or their bug tracking tools with their ITSM tools, the team's the help desk support tools, where the end users are logging incidents and basically having that ability to tie these two together and synchronize incidents back into the upstream tool allows the organizations to create a custom report to calculate defect detection percentage on the fly. So DDP can be calculated on the fly and monitored in real time to understand how effective your regression testing has been for that previous service pack, and to take corrective actions right away as you're noticing incidents being uncovered by your end users, because they're being logged in a different system. But now that they're feeding back up into the upstream tool, you can have the effective real-time reporting around that and be able to have visibility into it.
In order to make these decisions and to be able to track it, I guess your data is only as good as the data that you're able to collect. So I would think that's a challenge. So are there any challenges you see when you're managing software value streams?
Of course. And of course, there's always challenges. And you're absolutely right, Joe. Garbage in equals garbage out. Value stream integration. In my career, I've always been the type to say you can't throw technology at a problem and expect the issue or the problem to be solved just with technology. I'm more or less sort of like the holistic type that believes in balance between people, process, and technology. So one of the things, as we know, as it relates to requirements traceability and quality assurance for that matter, is there's a component or an aspect of discipline that must be embraced by the entire team. Discipline in the sense that process needs to be followed. Process needs to be part of the equation. And process could be anything from doing a thorough ambiguity check on a requirement to the process of ensuring that every test case has a requirement traced back to it or traced up to it, however you want to say it. But it's important that you realize or that you carry out these processes in your software development lifecycle, and that relates to the discipline component of it, right? So when you have a business analyst who defines the requirements, they're working in conjunction with your quality assurance analyst or your quality assurance lead, but that quality assurance lead has a responsibility as a practitioner to coordinate closely with that business analyst, follow process, and to ensure not only is that test case he or she is creating linked back to that originating requirement, but if there are other requirements that this particular test case also covers, it's important to do a multi-trace, to trace it back to the other requirements upfield. So to answer your question, Joe, do we see challenges? There are challenges because if the integrity of the artifact linkage falls down, if that right there, if an organization doesn't have the necessary process and discipline in place as it is, the synchronization or the integration of the flow of the artifacts from one tool to the next, it's not going to magically all of a sudden be linked together. As a result, we don't have artificial intelligence in place to handle that. There's still the qualitative component. If you think of any type of planning scenario, you have the subject matter expertise, the SME input known as the qualitative, and then you also have the quantitative, the scientific portion of it as well. So there's always that garbage in, garbage out type of mentality. And we often coach clients on that as well, of how important it is to exercise discipline as it relates to requirements traceability, and how doing that up front leads to better outcomes when you start to tie your entire value stream together.
A lot of times I come across topics for test talks based on research that I'm doing. And one of them was I had all these different applications and all this data, and I was trying to find a way to connect it all together. And I stumbled upon your webpage here, Understanding Value Stream Management for Tasktop. So what is Tasktop? I'm always trying to find solutions for folks, and this might be something that could help someone out there.
Yeah. So at Tasktop, all we do is connect people's value streams. And we do this in a number of ways. We've got different styles of integration. We've talked a lot about them throughout the last 30 minutes or so. But primarily, we start with that synchronization style of integration. We're focused on flowing those artifacts back and forth between the tools where practitioners are managing tests, managing requirements, managing their agile projects. And that's usually that low-hanging fruit that I talked about where people start. Beyond that, there's also a gateway style of integration. And what that style of integration does, it's really more focused on the DevOps tools and being able to get the event-driven details out of those DevOps tools. So when a build runs, or an automated test completes, or a security scan completes, those things are events. They're not defects, or they're not requirements that are collaborated on that have status that get updated. It's a one-time thing. So we were able to take those details from those events and get them back into your management tools so that maybe a commit is tied back to a story or a defect that a developer was working on, or maybe there was a failed security scan and you want to create automatically a defect in your tools so that your engineers can fix them. And then the third part of it, since we're flowing the information across the end-to-end lifecycle or the value stream, and since we have all of that data and that automated traceability in the tools, we're able to gather that into a single data store so that customers have normalized data that they can then put their existing reporting solutions on, whether it's Tableau or other tools that they're using for their reporting and their visualization. So that's really the three-pronged approach that we take to really connecting all of those tools in our customers' value streams. Tasktop's been around for 11 years now. We started as a PhD thesis out of the University of British Columbia. The company was founded or co-founded by Dr. Mick Kirsten, and he's still our CEO at this point. And so we're really based on very heavily on research over the course of the years and going out and talking to customers, interviewing people, and really understanding what problems they're having. And that research has allowed us to continue to innovate over the years and really learn from the challenges that our customers are facing.
Okay, guys, before we go, is there one piece of actionable advice you can give someone to improve their value stream integration testing efforts? And let us know the best way to find or contact you.
For me, it's start small. I see it all the time where people come to us with a specific problem and they start to see the possibilities of other problems that can be solved, and they lose track of that initial problem that they were trying to solve. So if you're having difficulty getting requirements or epics and stories out of your agile and requirements management tools and into the hands of your testers, then start with that and get it successful, and make sure that your testers and your agile teams and your BAs can really take advantage of that, and then look for other opportunities for improvement. And I can be reached at my email address, jeff.downs@tasktop.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well.
And Joe, to add to Jeff's point there, my advice for anybody who's looking for a first step would be to take a forest through the trees look and to do some value stream mapping at a higher level. One of the things that Tasktop does offer is value stream mapping sessions where we can help organizations look at their tools landscape from a higher level and sort of identify where you're at today. So understanding a lot of the times we talk to organizations who truly don't even know or realize all the different tools that are in use within pockets of the organization across different lines of businesses. So being able to see that at a 30,000 foot view, and then starting small, right? Having something like that as a sort of a roadmap to say, hey, these are all the tools that we're dealing with today. These are our existing investments. And then from there to identify the low hanging fruit and start with some basic integration patterns, as Jeff suggested. And I can also be reached at matt.anger, ANGERER, at tasktop.com.
Thank you, Matt and Jeff, for your value stream testing awesomeness. For links to everything of value we covered in this episode, head on over to testtalks.com/212. And while you're there, click on the sign up for a free trial link under the exclusive sponsor section to learn all about Sauce Labs' awesome products and services. So that's it for this episode of Test Talks. I'm Joe, and my mission is to help you succeed with creating automation awesomeness. As always, test everything and keep the good. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Test Talks podcast. Head on over to www.testtalks.com for full show notes, amazing blog articles, and other automation awesomeness.